Right, so yes, welcome everybody. This is today's webinar on brand perception and its importance in e-commerce. I'm Jack Goldsmith, Technical SEO Lead at Distinctly, and we have
Lewis Koch, Senior SEO Manager here at Distinctly.
Yeah, so we're looking forward to this one. Welcome back to anyone who's obviously been to our previous webinars of late. We tend to do these once a month on various topics across the digital landscape, essentially. We, as Distinctly, have our digital marketing suite of services. This is who we are, this is what we do. And each month, as I said, we kind of dive into each topic. At the moment, it's been very heavy AI, which is here to stay. But of course, welcome to anyone new as well, who's this first time webinar participants. We also have Q&As running, so do chuck any questions you have in that function for Zoom, and obviously we can answer anything we can towards the end of the slides. We welcome it. Yeah, there's no silly questions here at all. So yeah, let's crack on. Obviously, we're doing things specifically around like e-commerce. We Distinctly work with a wide range of e-commerce clients, leaders in their own markets essentially, and we're excited to go into this brand perception angle for today's webinar. So what exactly will we cover today? We're going to touch on why brand perception matters. We're also going to look at how Google, LLMs and others understand your brand in the current search landscape. And also Lewis is going to run through the actionable insights of how to measure brand perception and things around sentiment analysis as well, which is going to be really exciting thing to unpack, and what brands and marketing teams can do to actually take action here and influence your brand messaging online. Then we'll wrap up with some key takeaways, and of course, as I've already mentioned, any questions and answers that you have. Sorry. So let's kick on with why brand perception matters. What we do know is that we have this messy middle at the moment. I think if anyone who has been on our previous webinars, we've touched on this. It's not going away. Buying journeys are no longer linear. Users are bouncing between inspiration, research, validation, comparison. There's a lot happening and the noise is only increasing. So it's really, really important to try and find your USPs and really just divide yourselves away from the pack to really showcase your worth. How you do that, it can be challenging depending on the market that you operate in. There's obviously the element of trust and how you need to build trust with your audience and your audience groups. And there's also that multi-platform angle as well. It's not just only on Google. If you're on Google, that's fantastic, but there's social things, there's social platforms, there's ChatGPT, there's many, many ecosystems that contribute to how you can elevate your brand online, and also how you can influence your sort of prospective customers to actually buy your products as well, which is the ultimate goal here from a bottle funnel point of view. So what we do know is that Google is not just Google anymore. It's still the dominant player, I should say. Search behaviors have become a bit fragmented. It's still dominant, but as I said, we are dealing with this multi-platform viewpoint. And there's many, many touch points, which means attribution and general analysis can be a bit unclear at times for marketing teams. So as I said, it's really important to find what works for your brand, your USPs, and really live by that and the values. It's also, brand has always been important. I think for SEOs, what we're finding that, our duty has always been about non-brand as well as brand, but I think elevating your brand now has been, it's more important than ever. And how you integrate your strategy across multiple platforms like Instagram or even Reddit now, we've seen that soaring over the last 2 or 3 years. That's becoming or having its own space in search as well. So knowing where your audience are operating, behaving, and where they're active is so, so vital in how you can find where your brands are operating in and what they're being talked about, what communities they're being talked about in, and how you can actually take that knowledge, and Lewis is going to talk about this later, and actually bring it back onto your website or into your strategy and then deploy that through social platforms or your general brand messaging as well. So how do Google and LLMs understand your brand? Well, it's noisy. There's many things that you can own on the left-hand side here. Your own reviews, social proof, marketing collateral, your own website content, market positioning in general. These are things that you can control, and these are things you need to leverage. I think there's generally things about brand identification, like your actual identity, and going back to the drawing board as to what you want to be known by, who you want to appeal to, and making sure that tone, that sentiment comes through in your output, especially when we're dealing with website content. That could be blogs, that could be case studies, that could be general homepage material. There's got to be some sort of uniformity. And with that comes elements of building trust, utilizing your review platforms in the e-commerce space. How people can engage or at least retain customers immediately from that first land is so vital because everyone is impatient, everyone jumps around now. So locking in where it matters when someone's entered your site is so vital. And then on the right hand side, you've got about what you can actually influence, which looks a bit more the third party review stuff, around stuff like Trustpilot, all the big kind of review platforms like that. How you deploy your effective digital PR activity, and where you're taking that conversation and where you're being featured or covered in third party publications. Are you partnering with influencers to showcase your products across social media platforms? Is that where your audience live and are active as well? And also brand partnerships, which is obviously a huge thing we're seeing a lot more of in this day and age. So it all comes back to where your audience are, where they're active, and how you can actually leverage that immediately, is where we're seeing, and especially offsite signals on the right hand side are having such a say in how you can rank and how Google is interpreting your brand in search in general. So this has probably been the biggest evolution we've seen over the last 18 months to 2 years, especially with AI search becoming such a shake-up in our search industry. And when we look at your brand, when you look at or evaluating your brand, you've got to take care of your front of shop. And what I mean by that, if anyone is typing in your brand into Google, you need to look at every single feature that's being displayed, because what we're finding is that Google is not just a traditional 10 blue link landscape anymore. There are many different panels, features that are, it is increasing that noise. But Google is trying to serve the best or most suitable content about your brand to users. That could be knowledge graphs, things about your brand, the history of it, when it was created, the founders. You've got vital cogs like Google reviews. If you've got your local map pack, if you're an accountancy firm, if you're any e-commerce player, you should probably have a Google business to see where you're located. Google reviews are obviously a very vital, trusted cog of that whole system. Videos are hugely popular at the moment. YouTube has always, not say always, for the last, I guess, 5, 6 years, has become more prominent in search, and people probably are vying to look at videos over reading 600 to 800 words of copy now. Everyone's impatient. Everyone wants to consume content as quickly and efficiently as possible. And in the e-commerce landscape, probably something that we've seen over the last year or so, something like popular products. I'm not going to go line by line here, but like popular products is something hugely prominent in the e-commerce space, driven by merchant feed, and where people are taking decisions quickly, looking at those products in those popular products, and actually gaining a lot more click-through rate off the back of them. So, these percentages will change depending on your brand, how active you are, but it's important to monitor and to be active and just try and influence every single feature possible, because Google needs to know that your brand is active. And if you're stale, if you're not answering your community, answering questions that people are having, let's say on Google Business, it's not going to be a good look, and it's probably going to lose trust quite quickly as well. A key part of how Google and LLMs, large language models, are evaluating your brand and looking at sort of brand perception as a whole is through social. Social platforms are becoming such a vital cog in the whole of sort of digital strategy at the moment. One thing I looked at, one brand I've looked at is sort of Patagonia, sort of environmental responsibility. Their target audience are sort of environmentally conscious outdoor enthusiasts. Usually around that age bracket, it could change slightly. But their brand positioning is all about, we are an environmental company that makes outdoor gear. The values come first, the sales, the transactions, the actual, the shop itself comes after. And I think that's what is felt by their audience group and why people tend to return and buy off them. But they've used their social platforms very well. And what I would probably stress here is that it is an integrated strategy. As I said earlier, you need to find what your brand values or your brand identity is. How you go about that will obviously change per social platform. Audience groups change, from looking at Instagram and Reels and Stories versus YouTube. you're going to have, more lifestyle-y, nature-based, picturesque things on Instagram versus YouTube, where they look at a bit more in-depth documentaries, conservation, and literally showing the real-world impact on what they're actually doing. Um, X may change depending on the sort of what kind of audience groups they are appealing to. And then you've got their own website content, which looks at, is their home, it's their transparency, it's what they can showcase and their value. And this is a very good example of how you can be fluid and agile across each platform. It's definitely not like a one size fits all approach, but their values and identity flow throughout. The output and the content change up differs slightly. And that's why you need to be understanding is what is working on your platforms, taking that analysis, what is converting. And not everything will be about a sale. Things are building a brand up, building trust signals. And I think this from Patagonia is a good example of how they live by their values. And I've said this before about building trust, something that SEOs and Google has lived by, probably came out in 2017. But you can park that framework aside. Like building trust has always been a key thing. Building trust to your audience groups and prospective customers, and making sure they come back. And EEAT is something in the marketing teams, whoever's joining us will maybe know, or maybe if you don't know, experience, expertise, authoritativeness, and trust. This is the kind of acronym that Google came out with back in 2017. And it's actually helped probably a lot of digital teams to not force trust upon their audience groups, because that's just unnatural. It should be a natural thing, and how you display your shop, the trust and credibility you can bring through, whether that's through it could be through your people behind the scenes, your team, your bio pages. It could be through your brand partnerships, your influencers, and who you're partnering with. But there's so many cogs that come through with this framework, that you need to make sure that they are kind of being ticked off throughout. And Patagonia kind of excelled at that and executed the strategy really, really well. So yeah, trust is the focal part of anything we're doing here, and really is probably the biggest cog in how people can influence decisions to actually buying products off yourselves. When we look at social strategies, I'm always a big fan of like publishing new, but a quick learning I've said to many of my clients is that you're probably sitting on a lot of great collateral over the years that you can slice and dice, edit and reuse again, whether that's for seasonal campaigns, up and coming marketing campaigns. But it helps longevity. Not everything needs to be brand spanking new every single time. And changing up the content types, whether it's infographics, Twitter threads, YouTube shorts. As I said, look out where your audiences are behaving and are active, and changing up that content format that you've already maybe produced 6 months or 8 months ago. So you may be already sitting on a lot of gold. Not everything needs to be new all the time. It's something that has actually aided a lot of clients that distinctly, and it has obviously aided longevity as well. One really good tip and trick that actually came from Ram Fishkin, who you may know in the marketing world, co-founder of Spark Toro, sort of an audience intelligence platform. Engage with people citing you and citing your brand. Engage in the comments, reshare, repost. It's something that is such an easy win. Whether you're on LinkedIn or YouTube, engaging with your customers helps Google and LLMs understand you are active. You are strengthening that association to whatever topic you're discussing. And he's kind of coined this quote it, like it, link it, share it, because you can actually control that influence to how Google is going to perceive you in search. And also can obviously ramp up and elevate some of your content material that you may have published as well, by you reposting as a brand or connecting with another brand who has maybe posted your content. It's such an easy win that can obviously expand that reach depending on the platform you're operating in. So it might be a silly, obvious one, but just do it, because you never know who or where that content piece could fall into a prospective customer, someone who wants to buy your gear, whoever it may be. And when we look at LLMs, large language models, whether it's GPT, Gemini, whatever it might be, they have their own way of sort of dissecting your content. They take their learning stage of looking or analyzing your website. They look at those offsite signals we've already discussed around third parties, reviews, competitors, really trying to understand your space and your marketplace in general. They look at the topics, the associations you discuss, and where you're trying to enrich yourself. They look at the audiences, the type of audiences you're trying to appeal to. And then they obviously have to grade that and understand, is this factual content? Is it reputable? You know, how can I trust this piece of content? And obviously they are verifying and validating a lot of that, your brand versus others, and where you sit in that specific marketplace. And then they really dive into, which Lewis is going to look at, is around sort of the sentiment behind it. And how are people discussing your brand? What is the sentiment? Is it good? Is it bad? And they are trying, LLMs trying to evaluate things really quickly, rapidly on scale. And then they can only do that through many of those sort of sources right at the left-hand side there. So you can control some of those, and you can definitely participate in a lot of the offsite stuff and have control over those as well. But it all comes down to influence at the end of the day. I have said not to go mad about new, but we do know that large language models like new, updated, fresh content. We've seen that over time, whether it's new blog posts that we're writing and are being cited, or if it's new digital PR campaigns we've deployed and have reached coverage across nationals, they are quickly being cited by ChatGPT, and obviously could be a good source for whoever prospective customer is looking for the best shoes to buy in the winter period, or best boots, whatever. If we've got a brand operating that marketplace, we need to be covering that kind of material. So yeah, there is a strong correlation to what is new and what LLMs actually pick up as well. And we also know that by participating, or at least monitoring things like Reddit, these kind of platforms are such a hot gold, a part of your product community, and where, I don't think many people are spending a lot of time analyzing Reddit at the moment, which is such a missed opportunity, because Google is literally leveraging Reddit forums immediately. If people are typing in some of these quotes, you'll see like best waterproof shoes for women, Reddit is there. And if people are typing that same prompt into ChatGPT, Reddit is cited. So by you not being there, or your brand not participating in that conversation, is maybe an opportunity for you. It's a problem, but it's an opportunity. So you need to understand what those pain points are. If people are discussing your brand, re-leveraging that and placing that back onto your website. If it's a certain FAQ, certain gap in your content offering, you can quickly learn what your audience is saying about you through scraping Reddit, which obviously Lewis will go on to shortly. And this is exactly what we talk about, a nice little way in for Lewis's sentiment scraping analysis piece. But yeah, there are, depending on your brand, depending on your marketplace, there are going to be many large review-based websites you can actually scrape and analyze yourself. We've developed our own proprietary script to do this for us, which has unlocked many different wins and many benefits for our clients to say, oh, I did not know that. That's informed our strategy. This has changed the way we want to market ourselves in general. So it can be quite a groundbreaking bit of analysis, but something we, in this day and age, you have to be on and you have to be monitoring. So without further ado, I think I'm going to give Lewis the stage to go through the actionable bits now.
Cheers, Jack. Yeah, so this we're now going to sort of turn to more of the practical element of this, and move away from some of the theoretical, but it's hugely important. As sort of Jack mentioned there, it's super integral how you leverage this sort of information, because it might actually you might revisit how you see your own brand, but you might need like buy-in from other internal teams if you're a larger brand. We might unearth some things that they didn't even know. So you need this information to spread across the company. So this is kind of the, I guess, layout of what the output has been for us. So within these third-party review platforms, we've actually siphoned a lot of the content, and we've used, in this case, Trustpilot, Reviews.io, and Reddit. This is over a sort of 1,000 reviews in this case. And I guess, I'll just keep going. What we have done here is broken them down into sort of pros and cons, and then also more salient points, and then we kind of flesh out these pros and cons with a little bit more of a summary. This has taken, large amount of like information, content from these third-party review platforms, and really distilled that into the main points that we want to either leverage or we want to combat moving forwards, and then spread that word. So in this case, for instance, some of the cons really revolve around customer service, around product quality, and then some of the pros are more around sort of the delivery service and the product availability, etc. So we really want to feed that back into the brand itself and to the teams internally, and then see what actions we can actually do out of this. On top of this, we did actually as well scrape all the product reviews on the website. There was over 70,000 on this particular website. So yeah, you can imagine that was a lot of content. And again, we split this into sort of sentiment, overall sentiment, what is it, positive versus negative, pros and cons, again, the more sort of distilled facts. And then, a little bit of a summary between positive and negative, really putting a little bit more sort of flesh on the bones of these. So, product teams or, customer service teams or marketing teams can really share that internally. So I understand that, brands, they go through, it's cyclical, you go through times of really like good efficiency, bad efficiency, there might be issues with customer service, there might be issues with a certain product. So it's really about, fixing what is broken and amplifying what is working. So in this case here, for this brand, we had a few issues around the actual products themselves. So there were specific product categories, specific products within those categories that required a quality review, whether that be, in this case, I think it was down to stitching, etc. But that information can be moved onto the product development team and improved and actually made, fed into new innovative products in the future. And then the second part was around customer service. So yeah, we want to provide, the feedback online on these review platforms to the customer service team that there should be some efficiencies made. And, this can be done in a variety of different ways, whether that's, the transparency of policies, whether that's enhancing website content, whether that's a live chat widget, whether that's additional payment or shipping options, changing delivery service provider, increasing the social media engagement, so actually, responding to people online, if they're coming across these issues, and saying, sorry, we're on it, giving them the update, giving them the peace of mind and being like, we understand your grievances and, what we've heard you and we are doing everything we can to, overcome these. So what that does is establish a really nice feedback loop to gather these customer reviews and, directly go back to them. And I think that enhances the brand, and people feel taken care of. So super, super important. Now, on the flip side, the positives. So yeah, everyone's in this case looked at the affordable pricing and value of the product. So, what we can do here is really double down on the website, and whether it be on socials, informing the whole digital strategy, that affordability aspect, including promoting popular deals, using tools like comparison tables, highlighting seasonal promotions, and just using data that we get from these. So that, we might do a survey, for instance, on our email marketing platform that might, ask people, how affordable do you think our products are? And, if sort of like 95% say, yeah, very affordable, that's the sort of like first party data we can use and actually leverage on the website. Super, super important and very, very easy mechanism to do. So here's some good examples. So yeah, big sort of header or hero images on websites, pop-ups, with more deals. I think button-up box are really sort of leading the way when it comes to sort of using these cogs. And yeah, these comparison tables are really cool. The social proof there on the bottom right-hand side is really good examples of, how to leverage this information across your website. And, further to this, I guess, it's about understanding how we can maximize, I guess, conversions off the back of this. So, if customers in this instance provided great feedback about the wide range of products, okay, and the value of these, can we then start to bundle up a lot of these products? If people are talking about back to school products, okay, back to school footwear and how great value that is. How can we then, potentially leverage or upsell, cross-sell across other categories? If they're looking for back to school products, then we know, we could leverage other types, whether that be, for PE or whether that be for, just general school use, whatever it might be. That way we should increase, average order values. And yeah, it's just a great tool to use, really. So in this instance, as you'll see, the comparison between the third-party reviews and the first-party reviews, there was a disparity in the sentiment. So a lot of the sort of kickback we get when it comes to review platforms, leveraging them across the website, it's like, Lewis, I don't really want reviews on the website. It's people like Trustpilot, it's open platforms, so anyone can leave a review, and most of them are, mainly negative, because why would you else would you leave a review unless it's negative? But, what I would say is that it's more about being more proactive, and how you leverage those reviews. So in this instance, Trustpilot reviews negative. Okay, let's not leverage those just as much right now. However, what we have been doing in the background is sending out product review requests. In this case, over 70,000 come back, and the positive sentiment is over 90%. So what we do in this case is we actually leverage those product reviews rather than the reviews that IO and Trustpilot reviews, which we take on board the feedback, but we're working on those in the background. But we are, ultimately leveraging the more positive product reviews. How we do that is across every touch point when we're within an e-commerce platform. So that's going to be, on the homepage. So again, highlighting the product reviews over 70,000, around 4.5 average. On collection pages themselves, on product pages here on the right-hand side. And, I think the real goal in future will be, again, how we can diversify these. And again, button up box on the next slide is a very, very good example. So, they've actually broken down their first party product reviews into different categories, and or ICPs, people who have got puppies or breeders, people, who have got dogs who have got sensitive tummies, or got poor skin and coat quality, fussy eaters, etc. They've really been able to dive down and laser focus on terms of who they are targeting, and providing the peace of mind. If I do change my dog's, dog food, here is a bunch of validating, product reviews that show that it is worthwhile and it's really worked for them. So I guess to encapsulate that, by repurposing owned high-performing reviews, we're able to shape the narrative. So we are, again, back to that sort of saying, we are then amplifying what's great about the brand, but then in the background, we are, matching that with specific customer pain points and working on it and providing feedback loops that in order to really overcome them and, build a sense of community, I guess, within these brands. I think what I was going to say, my next point was around customer pain points. Yeah, so it's a real issue these days that, if we don't actually start getting, better reviews on these elements, we're going to become well known for that. And there are platforms such as Trustpilot, for instance, that more heavily weight their reviews that are more recent. So don't worry about all of those in the past, which you may have gone through a bad cycle of, poor product development or customer service. As long as you identify those issues and you improve upon them, and then you start, sending out more review requests, those improved review requests will have more weight in Trustpilot's eyes, in Google's eyes. So yeah, that will be a huge win for any brand, really. So yeah, the key takeaways are to move beyond keywords. So, any website content goes beyond keyword research. What it should do is actually deeply understand user needs and address pain points. Take a user-centric approach, especially in the world of AI, as Jack was mentioning there. Engaging directly with users and their challenges, and understanding their needs are crucial. Content, search, and AI alignment, super important. We're now living in an ecosystem, a landscape whereby user needs is almost what underpins the strategy across all of these sectors. So we can go across the whole marketing mix. And then ultimately what we want to do here is integrate that strategy, everything complementing each other, and understanding everyone's singing off the same hymn sheet, whether that be product development teams, whether that be, organic social teams, paid media teams, SEO teams, customer service teams, understanding, that real, I guess, joined up strategy is super important to get your brand messaging out there. And ultimately, I think, every brand should be doing this. So yeah, hit us up if you ever want a brand sentiment analysis.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Good chance for any Q&As. I don't think we've got actually any questions, open questions that have come through, which is absolutely fine. Obviously, yeah, please feel free to, Lewis just said that, to get in touch if any of that was relevant, or you have some curiosities that you want to follow up with. We are happy to answer any questions. There's no silly questions, as I've already stated. We've also got another webinar coming up.
We do, doozy.
Yeah, so future-proof PR strategies that work online and offline. So that's happening sort of a month today, or just a month to go till that 25th of February. So yeah, that will a link will come out for that in the coming weeks. So yeah, please join up if it's relevant for your brand as well. And yeah, that's been that. Thank you all so much for joining. Yeah, take care, and yeah, we'll chat to you all very soon.
Thank you.
Bye bye.